I'm with my friend Myrtle Crawford, who is from Belfast, but a frequent visitor to our family in Anahilt. But Myrtle, though you're from Belfast, your parents weren't from Belfast. Where were they from?
My parents were from Hillsborough.
Right, and they eventually went to live in
Belfast.
And that's where you were born?
Yes.
Myrtle, what's your earliest memories of the war?
The earliest memories would have been the sirens going,
Right.
and having to run out and down the stairs and underneath the stairs we had to go to. And then after that, when the shelters and all were built, then we had to run to the shelters.
So where exactly did you live in Belfast at the
Craigie
time?
Street. The shelters were in the street. There was two lots of shelters in the street.
So did the sirens go off just during the daytime or at night time? Or
Night time,
So
mostly
not
night.
at night, what did you do?
My mother had to get us up out of bed and get a coat on us and rush us down into the shelters. With us being so young, it was a bit of an adventure as well as everything else. It wasn't scary, like. Well, the only time that what I really remember being frightened was I got separated from my mum, and I didn't know where she was, and I was, I think, in hysterics at the time. But they couldn't take me out to find her until the sirens had stopped or the all clear had come.
And where did you eventually find her?
She was in the next shelter.
All right.
She probably was looking for me, but she had my brother with her, and I'd probably run on in front of her.
Right.
I went into the wrong shelter just.
You stayed in Belfast during the whole of the war?
Probably most of it. Except for the time we must have been 2 or 3 years up in Myrtle.
So were you evacuated to Myrtle?
Yes.
Was that early on in the war?
Yes, it would have been probably from maybe the 2nd year of the war. My aunt and uncle lived in Myrtle, and they had a fairly big home that we were all taken to. My couple of my cousins and my 2 other aunts and my grandmother went down, but my mother stayed at home in Craigie Street.
Did you know anything about rationing during the war, although you're very small?
No, I knew there was the ration books. We had ration books, so we did.
Right.
And even for sweets, they had the 4 Ds and the 4 E's.
And what was this on the ration card?
Yeah, that was on the ration book, yes.
So you were delighted to get those wee
yes,
treats?
4 Ds. 4 Ds was an E was a quarter, and a 4 Ds. 4 Ds was a quarter, and then each E was a quarter.
Right. What about food? Where did you get the food from?
Well, just there was a co-op and all there, so there was. And just had to go and get your shopping there, and dried eggs. There was no eggs, there was powdered eggs and different things like that.
What about vegetables?
Well, when we were in Myrtle, we went to a Jewish farm and got vegetables. But in my aunt's house, he was a baker. He was Jordan's Bakery down on the Newton Ards Road. So we were still getting food from the bakery as well. He would have been bringing home apple tarts and food from that he had baked down in the bakery.
Right.
I was born in 1936.
Right. So you were very, very young during the war?
Yes. I would have been 3 when my father went away. I think he went away in 1939, I think it was. My father was a soldier.
So when your father went to war, what age were you?
Well, I would have been about 3 or 4 just.
What do you remember hearing of his career in the army during the Second World War?
Well, just that he was in the army, it didn't mean much to us because he was away. We didn't see him, and then when he was taken prisoner, like it was sort of more talked about in the house rather than to us, because we were both young, Jim and I.
Your father was taken prisoner. Where was he taken prisoner at?
He was at the retreat at Dunkirk.
All right, so that was away long before D-Day, so he was part of the first retreat?
Yes, yes. And he was a prisoner for the whole of the war.
Right. Where was he taken prisoner to?
He was in Germany.
Right. Have you any memorabilia about your father?
Well, we just got his photograph in his number and the uniform. his photograph with his number and all on it, and the German, his fingerprint.
Right, so that's his prisoner of war card?
Yes,
then?
that's his
Right.
prisoner of war.
And what else have you there?
Just some papers and a tin that he had come, a box that he had come home with from the prison camp.
Right. So you got that from the Germans, put his bits and pieces in. Very good. And what's this other book here?
That's just army papers that said, yes,
What regiment was he in?
Royal Irish Fusiliers.
Myrtle, did you have a gas mask during the war?
Yes, I had. It was a Mickey Mouse one because of my age.
All right. So what did it look like?
It just looked like a wee Mickey Mouse head. It was carried around, you had to carry it around in a box over your shoulder.
Right. And did you ever have to use it?
Well, we had to have practice runs with it, just put it on and in a hurry.
Did you ever hear any bombs being dropped over Belfast?
Yes, you heard the bombs that would hit the Newtonards Road. My granny's brother was killed in one of them.
And had you any other relatives in the war?
Oh yes, nearly all my uncles were in the war.
Did you lose any of them?
No,
All came home.
all come home, except for my dad. He was the prisoner one. He was there the longest.
Tell us about when your father came home from the war after being released from prison.
Well, when they come home, everybody was waiting for him in the house and in the street. But my cousin and I are the same age, so he didn't know who I was or who Valerie was. He didn't know which one was his daughter because he had no photographs or anything. I was born, but he went away when I was probably 3 when he went, and then he wasn't home. Must have been 5 or 6 or something when he came home. Because when he did, after he came home for a fortnight, I know he came home for 2 weeks, and we went down to my aunt's house again in Malay just to give for a break with him, myself and mum and my brother and my father, and then he had to go back to hospital in England. He was in hospital in England for a year because he had TB and wasn't well, and he had to have a kidney and all out. And even when he finished with the war, when he came home here, he had to go to the army hospital on Hollywood Road. They always wore blue suits. He was in there for a good while as well.
Have you any other memories of the war?
There was prisoners of war in the armoured park, so there was German prisoners of war
Where's that at?
in the armoured park.
All right. And where were they kept?
I don't know where they were kept, but they were walked about in the park. I remember that, and people talking about them really.
Myrtle, thanks very much for helping us out to remember something of what it was like during the war days.
We're with Donald Rutherford today, and we're going to have a wee chat about the war, what he remembers, and what are your first memories of the war?
I remember the soldiers coming around with their tanks and motorbikes and all their equipment and the training. And that was the very start of the war. That was the start of it. They were everywhere, you see. There were lorries and tanks and motorbikes and everything, all those wee roads right around past your house and away up down past Noel's and all that sort of thing. They had an oven in our garage, and that's where they did their cooking, making bread and cakes and everything else. And I was amazed at where all the sultanas and raisins that they could bring out, and we couldn't get any.
Right.
Hardly knew what they were.
Did they share their food with you?
Oh, they gave me some too, yes. I took it. They didn't give it to me.
So
Then you see, the Americans come over. The American army come over here. They stayed in Larchfield. You knew that? No.
No, I didn't.
No?
Whenever the American army, they stayed in Larchfield. For how long, I don't remember. I don't know. But my uncle, you see, used to own the pub here. I can't remember what they called it. It wasn't a tavern, it was something like that. He owned the pub, and the Americans used to come over. and buy whiskey for him, and they didn't know the value of the pound. They didn't know, and he just charged them as much as he could get. That was the rumour. That's where he made his money, coming over the wall. They cut over the wall to get the whiskey.
Did you have a gas mask? Did you
Oh
have to-
yes, I had a gas mask, sure. I had to take it to school every day, and I practiced putting it on and taking it off, and all that sort of thing.
Was your house blacked out during the darkness?
Oh, it was surely. You had to have lights on. Anywhere there was light, and the same thing with the cars. The cars had all tin masks over their headlights with deflectors pointing down. But there were very few cars on the roads then in those days. It wasn't like now.
Do you remember any of the planes coming across to bomb?
Oh yes, I remember going up onto the big hill behind our house and watching the searchlights and the planes, the searchlights, picking out the planes and the lights over Belfast. We'll never forget it. And then you could hear the odd bomb going off. Well, I was excited, but I wouldn't say I was frightened. It's very strange that people could do that to other people, bomb them. At that time, there was one night there was, I don't know, many thousand people killed in Belfast in bombing. Thousands, like.
Could you see the bombs dropping?
Oh, no.
Too far away?
Too far away.
But you saw the searchlights?
Oh, definitely saw the searchlights. It's plain. You know, flicking them back across the sky, you know, they weren't just straight up.
What about the ration books?
Yes, everybody had their ration book. You had, if you wanted a pound of sugar or 2 pounds of sugar, you had to take your ration book with you, and they cut a square out of it, and that was your ration for the week. And the same thing with butter. And
Was there much activity around Anahilt?
Anahilt crossroads, it used to be straight across to go to Dramara. If you were going from Lisburn to Dramara, you'd go straight across. And there used to be a big house on the corner, belonged to a man called Kyle Jones. And they had the post office there. That's where the orchard, and they had a big apple orchard there as well.
That's right.
Where the orchard is now. That was all apples, and we used to have always had great fun. Well, not so much me, because I was always taught not to steal. But the young boys coming from school would have slipped through a hole in the hedge and stole their some apples.
Was that during the war?
That was, yes.
Oh.
So that time.
Tell us about school during the war.
Well, there was a Miss Reid and there was a Master Cochran in those days during the war. But I couldn't tell you when they retired or when they...
What did you do in school during the war?
I didn't do very much. And you cut that bit out. The old school, you see, was where the home is now. But I never went to it. But it was stopped, and that's where that schoolmaster lived. And behind it there was a garden. And whenever you reached a certain age, then you had to work an hour every week or 2 hours every week and do some gardening. And they taught you to garden. Everybody had their own plot.
To grow vegetables?
Grow vegetables, whatever. And I only remember the new school where it is now, but it wasn't as big then as it is now. And Master Cochran, he had a big long cane, and he wasn't afraid to use it. But unfortunately, it didn't do me any good.
What about the farming during the war? Did your dad do much farming during the war? Did he grow vegetables?
Oh, you know, he always grew potatoes, and they grew flax. That field in the front of where we lived, he grew one year, he grew flax and that. But there was so much bother with it for you. You had to pull it, put it in sheaves, and then you put it in the lip hole, which is still there.
Oh, is it?
And then you put stones on the top of it, and it had to stay there for I don't know how long now, maybe 2 weeks. And then you had to bring it out, and then you had to spread it all over the fields to let it dry, and then it finished up as linen. But you'd had it, in the meantime, then you took it up to Kennedy's mill up at the pound burn. And they scutched it, that's what they called it, scutched it. And that's behind, way up behind there. And the reason why they call that the pound burn, a pound used to be when you were dogs home. If a dog was stolen or was lost, everybody took it to the pound up there at the pound burn. And the burn, we say, was the river. So that's how that area got its name, Pound Burn.
So you lived on the Ballycroon Road?
Ballycroon Road.
Right.
Beside this lady here.
Do you remember anything about the evacuees?
I do. Yes, I do. I remember all about the evacuees. We didn't have any evacuees at our house because my aunt and uncle, or my aunt passed away, and she had 1, 2, 4 of the family, and we had 2 of them at home. But the 2 of them came to our house, and they lived at our house until they were, they were teenagers. So therefore we didn't have them. But the McCords, that's behind you, the McCords behind you, they had a couple of evacuees, or maybe more. And I heard them all talking about evacuees and all that sort of thing. And one night I was angry with one of my cousin, and I called her the wee evacuee, and I got into more trouble over that. My mother and father were mad at me calling her the evacuee. Well, I remember the fellow Graham, he was in the Navy, and I remember the word that he got, I'm coming home as well, that he was sunk in the Atlantic. His boat was sunk and he was lost in the Atlantic. I always remember that, because I knew him, you see. There was only radio, no electric. You had a wet battery, it was full of acid. And you could have taken it up to the shop and got it charged, because the electric would come to the shop. And you charged the battery up there and you paid for it. And then you bought a big square battery about this here, a dry battery.
And what about the Home Guard?
I was actually trained for the Home Guard. My brother, he was a lieutenant in the Home Guard, the farmer, Noel's father. And he used to practice with me whenever I was 14 or 15. He marched me up and down and about turn. You do that whenever you were in the training for the police. And about turns. And a wee stick below my arm. You know, he had a stick, you see, for below his arm, whenever he was drilling.
Like a sergeant major?
Yes, that's right. He was sort of training them.
Yes.
And he trained me, he taught me to march. See, the members were made up from a lot of the families from around about. And the train, I don't know where the train to, quite honest with you, it was the Orange Shaw or where it was. And went away, and then they would go to Ballykindler maybe 2 or 3 times a year and train with guns. Sammy, he had a Sen gun. And 303 rifles, all the members of 303 rifles.
So what did they do around Anahilt?
Well, what did they do? I don't think they ever done anything. You know, they didn't go out and stop cars or anything like that there. You know, it was, the Home Guard didn't do anything because they had nothing to do. They were trained for if the German soldiers come over here, they wouldn't fight them. You know what I mean? The base specialists are more doing with traffic and all that type of thing, I think. No?
Yeah.